Yo. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's gonna really be the first of all? No, not me. I write my own lyrics and I make my own beats, yeah, and I tell you that's peace. I don't ever go to work, I just go and take a seat. Then write another hook in my MacBook. Then write another hook in my MacBook. Repeat, tap both feet, spark that shit, lean back in seat, and I never work like an antenna.
All right, what's going on, everybody? I am the one, the only, the WOOKIE. We're a little short again this week, and I think we'll get into that in a bit. But no Z, we got Ewok. What's up? What's up, JR?
Hello, Keyforge community. We have some news.
Yes, and sheep. Yep.
But we're
and
live this time, so
we are live this time.
Hear our stupidity straight to their ears.
Straight to the microphone. So, since times have changed and things have changed, we have now. Normally, we would record at like 4:30 today. That has all changed due to people's schedules. So it was moved to 8:30. So I get to do something I've kind of always wanted to do, and that is do the show live. Because I used to do a lot of live shows, and then this show, because it's 4:30 on a Thursday, and I live in Central, all of us live in Central Standard Time. That's not really conductive to most of the rest of the world who, is usually still at work. So we never did it. Now we're doing it later, so here we are live. How does it feel to be live, guys? Do you like it? No? I mean, I know we just started, but...
Well, I mean, the audience has been really quiet. Yeah, the audience has been really
calm
quiet.
Down over there, people.
So as a result, I don't really see much difference. Yeah, we're good.
No, not yet. So, I mean, this is the first time we've ever done it. So, we'll see how it goes. Quick bit of housekeeping. This will be Mr. Ewok's last episode with us for a while. He might come back, see his Keyforge compadres from time to time, but Mr. Ewok will not be with us for, well, I mean, I guess I'll let you give out your reasoning, so go ahead.
Yeah, obviously we had some really big news that happened across the last week, but for me, I've always been balancing and kind of double or triple booked on some of the different nights. So right now I've been coaching my youngest. I've talked about that a couple different times. And even tonight, I ran in order to go ahead and pick her up. And so at least for September, October, I need to be able to have some time. Right now, my only night, the only night out of 7 is Tuesday. And that just means that everything gets piled in, whether that's mowing, whether that is going ahead and running, like battery goes out on a car. You just have to take care of things around the house. And so with this kind of departure, I mean, I love our Keyforge community. I'll definitely stay active on kind of the backside, but I'm going to take a little hiatus from recording and spend a little more time with the family. And you might even see me be able to jump on some of the events or kind of chat. But for the next couple months, things are very, very busy. And with the news that shall be coming, we'll have to see when I return, if I return. But I think that at this point, I always said I'll stick around as long as we have content and I'm enjoying it and it's not interrupting things with the family. So if I can help my family right now, that's where I place number one.
And with that being said, the same will be happening with Mr. Z. Mr. Z just joined in, didn't he? It's you, Ewok.
Oh, hello, Keyforge community. I've grown older. But I will remain number one for so much longer. You won't even know. Keyforge 2.0 will come out and I'll still be number one. I might have a cane, but you'll see me.
Yeah, Mr. Z is also his son, I think is he in high school now?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Little Z's in band, and there's a lot that's happening. And I think that's an important piece to be able to provide a chance to be with family. And we've always looked at the competitive side. So with the competitive nature being what it is right now, there's still a lot of opportunities to play Keyforge, and you're going to hear about that. We love Keyforge. But you'll just hear Sheep and Wookie, and Z and I will take a little bit of a break, and hopefully we'll be able to come back in the future. But if not, see us around at VTs if that returns. If not, around conventions, and that is part of life.
Yep. I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, obviously me and Sheep are going to continue doing the show. And as long as Sheep can. If not, it'll just be me. So that should be fun. But either way, like, the show's going to continue. Z and J are taking a little sabbatical for now, I guess. That's just what I'm going to call it, for lack of better terms, due to the fact of, like, we're not getting much of anything right now. But let's pop into one of our AMA questions that we still have. We got a backlog of them. I still have a whole AMA episode to upload just because of how things went. Like, we got news, and then we didn't get news, and then we recorded an episode, and then all of a sudden, like, literally, I think I uploaded the episode and the news came out. Like, legitimately, I think that's how it went. So, either way.
I mean, before we get into that AMA question, since this is live, Wookie, I can go ahead and apologize, because I know that before we recorded last Thursday, you were actually going ahead and trying to convince me that we needed to go ahead and talk about the topic of the algorithm loss. And I'm like, no way. There's no way that Fantasy Flight went ahead and did that. Like, that's hogwash. I'm not going to go ahead and lead down that. I didn't have enough evidence to back it up. I know that we had two different sources at the time, and you've always been extremely reasonable. But I have to put my hand up and say, Wookie, you were right, and I was wrong. And man, that news that news hit us. So we'll see. Yeah. But there you go, man. You got one on me.
I mean, it's not about getting one on you. That's not at all what it is. Like, it's more, I'm just trying to think, like, it's more about, like, I thought maybe there was something there. Things weren't adding up. This kind of makes sense in let's talk about it. And honestly, like, I was like, dude, I think that's a little bit ridiculous too. Just because you're talking about a multi-million-dollar company losing, the algorithm to the game that basically they wrote, they did all this stuff. Like, I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I'm like, there's no way they lost the algorithm. That just seems silly. I can point out 6 or 7 reasons why. And then literally as I'm uploading the episode, an article drops and it's like, we lost the algorithm, or the algorithm's broken, or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, oh. I did not expect that to see, but we're going to get into that article in a little bit. We do have the AMA question. Do you like the idea of being lore? Do you like the idea of there being lore that is meant to tie the sets together? I know Z's answer. What art? I didn't even know this card game had a story. You guys, do you guys read the lore? Do you look into that? Is that something you look to? John's not here. Lokar. I'm just going to call him Lokar. I know he looks into the lore and, obviously is looking for what's coming next, so on and so forth. Is that something you guys look for?
It is something I'm interested in, but I just haven't got to reading the book. Like, I got Ewok's copy of the first book, and I read, like 6 pages of it, but I don't find I have that much time where I sit and physically read. I do a lot of books on tape because I'm trying to always be moving. So at one time, I thought you were going to read that book to me, Wookie, and you still haven't.
Oh, do we need story time with Wookie? I mean, I could totally make that happen.
Actually, there is time coming up that you guys can definitely make that happen, minus some copyright issues. But I'd thrown that out there. I will tell you that my 2 cents, I really enjoy the lore. I think the lore is a lot more than just the art. I think that we have stories. I really enjoyed Tales of the Crucible. There are different branches. This is a complete universe that is just the tip that we are, just starting to go ahead and explore. So I think that with their own IP address, I think with their own content, it's just completely wide open. And I find it fascinating where some of the different authors have taken it. I think the Keyforge RPG would be really cool. I have not ventured down that path. I found that RPGs are not necessarily my bag. It's not what I really enjoy. We played a MechWarrior piece, and it was not my thing, but I like going ahead and finding out about different characters. I like being able to go ahead and explore what is possible. I like seeing options that are there from some of our characters that we already know and love in the game. So I think that is something that should tie our sets together, and it's fairly easy because, you know, this universe has not been created, fully developed. It's just for us to explore now.
I haven't read the book yet. I don't know. Like, okay, so Magic obviously has a extensive lore that I never really even cared about until I was older. And then I'm like, hey, what's all this stuff? And then I started reading it. So maybe it's something I pick up along the way. I've never, honestly, like I said, I've never been a big lore person. I read like a fourth grader, which equals slow. So reading for me is very difficult. I'm much like Dan. Books on tape are a big deal for me. Tape, that doesn't even exist anymore. I have an Audible subscription. That's how I get my reading in. As someone else reads it to me. Me and Dan are going to have a long line of YouTube videos where I'm tucking him in at night, reading him keyforge stories. Nothing from Dan, huh? Not a thing.
Nope,
no, it seems totally reasonable to me.
No, yeah.
I was just thinking about the
Dan's in his Snufflegator jammies.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what my wife's going to think about a camera in my bedroom.
I mean, hey, you know, just tell her it's for bedtimes and keyforge. Not a big deal.
Air mattress right behind me, so I suppose I can.
And this is why Ewok is leaving slowly. Backing out of the room.
I prefer a rocking chair, but I'll take an air mattress, I guess. You got to do what you got to do. So I was just waiting for Dan to say something like, what? No, we're not doing that. But I guess Dan's all in, so look for that to never happen. So let's see. What do we got up next? Why I Suck at Keyforge. Is this you, JR? Wednesday night takebacks?
Yeah, so I came in. First of all, huge shout out. I mean, we've heard people going ahead and saying, oh, Keyforge is dead. Yeah, the complete opposite. I jumped in Lokiar's sealed event yesterday. And he had, 20 people when I showed up?
People last night.
Yeah, and there were some that had already dropped at that point, so it had been more. Like, that's incredible. And I just give a standing ovation. Like, well done. That is what the community has always been the reason why I'm here. But it was great. There was chatter that was there. But as I came in, it was kind of funny because, you know, we've kind of had swings. There was a ton of new people that I hadn't seen before, which was exciting. But there were a number of times where I could just hear this quiet spot where it was like, oh, I got to take that back. That's not what I intended. And that's not what I'm used to hearing from Tuesday or Sunday. But everyone was so easygoing. Yeah, whatever. Like, it just didn't matter. It was friends sitting around the table, guys and girls sitting, playing Keyforge, having fun. And it was about the experience, not about this cutthroat component. It was, hey, I cracked some decks. We're having fun. I can't necessarily go out to my local store, but we're all here. And I love that component. So even though it was Keyforge, you know, Wednesday night takebacks, there were at least 4 or 5 that I'd heard. It made me laugh, and it was in a good sign because it was everyone enjoying the game, having a blast with it. So yeah, I threw it up there real quick, but that's more a shout out for everyone who came out and just enjoying the game because it is an amazing game.
Listen, I can't tell you how many times on TCO I've clicked the wrong button. Like, I know in my head what I want to do, but like when it comes to like getting that information to my hands and clicking a button, it is tougher than one would think. I mean, JR's jabbing at me, and that's okay, but it's tough. It's not the same as in live play. My hands just know what to do there. Not so much on TCO.
Hard to develop a card game interface where you have to balance the amount of verifying your clicks versus just letting a click run, right? Because if every time you click something and then you have to click another button that says verify that what you clicked was right, it just kills the interface totally. So you end up with what we have here where you click on something and it's not actually what you wanted to do, and it's because you got, you know, an itchy trigger finger or, you know, whatever input thing happened. But like, I mean, I do it on there too. Like, I misclick houses just because I don't know, I get twitchy when I play on TCO.
Yeah, it happens to me all the time. Like, I'll be like, I want Starlights, and I choose Shadows. And it's like, wait, what? That's not at all. Did I select that?
Okay,
I gotta
that's
imagine,
the most
yes, I
basic.
did.
That's the most basic piece. You have to select
It is the
your
most
house.
basic.
Come
It
on.
happens all the time. Like, I can't tell you how many times where I'm like, did I choose? No, I didn't click Shadows. I clicked Star Alliance. Yeah. My controller must be busted. Like, it happens all the time, but it is fun. Most people aren't too, like, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Stingy. Like, oh yeah, not a big deal. Manual mode, we fetch it.
I mean, again, it's a game. We should be all having fun. And trust me, my hand's up. I've made more than one. Hey, can I change that? So I've made misclicks. It happens to all of us, and we're fine with it. I think, Dan, you transitioned really, really well, though, because you talked about online play. And I know we've been talking about the algorithm. So let's jump in. Fantasy Flight, man, we did not even make it, boys and girls, to the in-flight report. So that was yesterday. That was yesterday, but wow, Fantasy Flight went ahead and released an article. I'm sure at this point you've all heard, listed down but not out. There have been a couple different immediate responses from other podcasts and other content creators. So I appreciate everyone being able to chime in, whether that's from Facebook, Reddit, whether that's Twitter, whether that is on our Discords and other Discords. But man, this information went absolutely viral, and it went. So, what's the main piece? Well, I think there's a couple of them. I think they gave us some news of, well, you're really, really sad, and that was the algorithm was lost, or there was a loss of data is kind of what we're seeing. And I think that's the first piece. Second was the release or a statement of an intention to have online play.
Yes.
We do have TCO that is still there. I cannot stress thank you to the TCO friends and family. But this would be an acknowledged online platform that would be coming from FFG. They then announced the next set, Winds of Exchange. And those are the three main components from that article. So let's hash out the first one with the lost algorithm.
Well, I was going to say, with Winds of Exchange and a new, online client coming, we're going to do those in further episodes. We may touch on them a little bit tonight. But mainly let's talk about the algorithm lost or loss of data, or whatever the case may be, because I think that's the thing that's got a lot of people reeling right now. And like originally when we talked about this last week, when I said, hey, this is a rumor that's floating out there, let's talk about it. I really thought that's what it was. It was just a rumor. It was nothing more. There was no stipulation. There was no no merit to it whatsoever. Because I got to imagine a company like FFG has servers. Big servers that they have like a backup for each set, right? Well, now we know that that's not a thing that exists.
I would be surprised if they even have a real IT department that runs backups with backup recovery testing.
They don't. Just kind of coming from a lot of things from what I've heard. And obviously there's information to back this up that the guy who codes Keyforge, I guess, does it part-time. And like he's not even on the staff, like he's contracted and he does it part-time. And that's it. Like there's nobody else behind that. And I'm just like, well, how in the world, why do you not have a backup? Like, even if you don't want to go all the way back to Coda to have a backup, why don't you have a backup from just Dark Tidings? Or even go two sets back and have a backup from Mass Mutation?
You gotta, okay. I mean, like, I understand what you're saying, but you're talking about things that even, not Fortune 500, but some high-end, big-time companies fail at all the time. Like, data backup practice is actually something most companies find very, very hard to do.
Isn't that what we learned to do in school? Save early and often?
Yeah, but what happens when your save corrupts? Like,
well, I
save
mean,
it there and you like.
I call my IT department. Like Fortune 5 companies have IT departments. Like it's crazy to me to believe that the guy who coded this game,
in comparison, like they're not that big. I
work for a company. I work for a company that legitimately is not a large company, and if I gave out the name of the company, most people will never have heard of it before. I have an IT department. If something goes wrong in my store, I literally can pick up the phone and say, and his name's Ken, but hey Ken, here's my issue. What do I do, or what can you do to fix it? And it's fixed within a couple of hours.
Your company across the whole company is built on a computer background, right? Like, because I've heard you talk, and you have to go on and see what it's selling for, and you got to report everything back. Like, that's not FFG's thing. This is the only serious game that requires a computer active internet interface. Their other stuff, they have built some apps for some other games, but look at their other digital presences. Their website is 12 years old and looks it. It
does.
The Keyforge Master Vault is still in beta and has never really been changed. None of their other digital presence has ever shown any particular high level of skill or investment. So I gotta imagine.
But they have some very active chat groups, though. Oh wait,
they do.
No,
I thought the forums got taken down like a year ago.
It was another piece. I mean, their tech is very dated. I agree 100% with Sheep, though, is that this is not FFG's background. This is not their strength. They produce board games. They produce card games. And so I think the piece that's really, really missed is that Keyforge was the first uniquely generated game that we saw. Okay, that comes with its own parameters that as we're generating all of these decks, as we go in, they have to be able to retain what has already been printed. They have to be able to keep in mind that the sets, they have to be able to keep in mind what are restrictions for card types and how many and unique rarities, all of this. So eventually, I'm actually kind of impressed that it lasted this long. And I'm going to say that. I really am. And while it really is a complete bummer, I think this is a prime time where we can go ahead and we can now fix some of the things that we frankly want to see. And I love that FFG is trying to be able to put out, hey, we want to go online with this. We've been asking for an online client for forever. So this is where we can now go ahead and say that the algorithm did not allow that previously is what the argument is. Whether that's true or not, we can now get some of the different items right. I hope that they go ahead, they've made tweaks to the algorithm. We've seen that as they've gone ahead and gone on. I'm still rather, I've gone up and down, man. As this information has come out, as I've heard different podcasts, as I've seen different people, I've gone up and down with my reaction. But I think that this honestly is going to end up in our favor. It's going to make the game stronger in the end. We just as a community have to band together until we get over this hump and we get back on where decks can be generated. And I think that was the big piece that was missing earlier, is that we knew that decks were not being generated after Dark Tidings. That was scary to be able to hear for the longest time. So to know that FFG is committed, that they are actively working towards this is a moneymaker. And I think that we want to go ahead and support them. We want to be able to build a more robust algorithm. And frankly, please, FFG, find a way to be able to back this up in multiple ways, that even if we lose data again, that we can come back to this point, or a point, let's say, every 6 months. Every year, whatever it is, have a point to be able to go. When I was looking at this information, why are we not backing it up after each set? And I'm not saying back it up, but you have a cut point, and then you can be able to add on to the algorithm on the next piece. I don't know enough about tech, so there are reasons why not.
That may not work, although backups would be a good choice. But I think this is a situation where it's just like there are other software, Gem being another case, where like Gem isn't an amazing piece of software. It works. My understanding, it's a one guy little development kind of thing on the side too. That's been FFG's thing. I think my guess is the original algorithm code was written by Garfield and a friend, right? Because Garfield has some technological background that I'm aware of, but not not that much, at least I believe so. So it was probably written by somebody who isn't really a top-end coder and wasn't thinking about all the possible outputs and information and changes that are going to develop over time. So you already have a spaghetti code background that they then kept sticking stuff in. And yeah, it burned it up.
So a couple questions from what you guys had talked about, because I think, number one, when we talked about the algorithm, and that's why there hasn't been an online offering. Like, I call that WOOKIE because there's a thing called TCO. Somebody figured it out. And there's really honestly no reason why FFG couldn't.
The algorithm.
Right, it has nothing to do with the algorithm, but like the algorithm really, I mean, I guess it depends on what they want to do with it, right? If they want to sell decks in a online offering, then yes, you need the algorithm. But to just allow the people to play online with the decks they already own does not require the. So, I mean, I'm going to kind of poo-poo on that.
But I think what you're really looking at here is, I have no doubt that they have some nasty corruption in their code. It was pretty evident that when DT went live, there was a problem. Even when MM went live, there was a scanning problem originally. So whatever data that lives on Master Vault is not the algorithm. Like, it goes and finds the algorithm and it looks up the code and gets the deck information or something. And that thing has been clearly broken and not very sustainable. Like, whatever design they use on it, it doesn't look like there's space to keep extra information, which is why we're not getting pip information. Like, I don't think it was that well designed in the background. So as they were looking to push it online, and I really think when we go to online, there will be online-only decks. So they need to be able to generate tons more decks on the fly, right? Instead of like having this pre-generated list, just every time somebody buys the deck, it just goes and pings it and it makes a new deck, right? That's something they could do if it was stable and workable, and I don't think it was, right? So when people are trying to figure out how to turn this into an online thing where it's got revenue, it was a disaster. So
my next question after that
is whether it's actually broken or if they're just going, hey, it's junk. We can't use it for what we want to. If we want to move forward with this game, we need to rebuild that back end. I think that's reality, but I also can't believe they need to call a hiatus to do that. Because like you saw, if you look around online, Sky Jedi has created an approximation of the algorithms.
I was going to say, he's already up through, is he through DT now? I saw MM, I don't remember if it was yesterday or today, but he was relatively close to finishing the algorithm. He had DT. Yeah. Or finishing, like you said, an approximation of the algorithm.
But there's a difference between an approximation. Again, I'm going to tell you, I think that they threw the algorithm together. They didn't know whether keyforge would take off or not. It did exceptionally well, but that tells me that airplane was made while it was in the air. And if that airplane was made while it was in the air, it has some faults, and it eventually just doesn't have the ability to sustain itself and stay upright. And I think that's where they had to make a call. Picture, if they're willing to go ahead and state, hey, we have worked and we're trying to go ahead. We love this game. You hear the different response from Archons, and you hear it from Balance Sheet. You hear it from FFG's own president on the in-flight report. They're still committed and invested in this game, but they realize they can't go much farther without going ahead and revamping this.
Well, remember, Ewok, remember, there's still DT out there to sell, so...
There's still plenty of mass mutation out there to sell.
Right, of course he's going to say that. I mean, he's not going to be like, well, it's broke, we're just done. Bye. He's not going to say that.
I understand that component, but I think that where I have seen people who are, from the developers, from Aaron, from Balance Sheet, I know that Aaron had talked on Call of Discovery that they had already built out Sec 6, 7, and 8. That's a lot of time and effort for them to just go ahead and say, you know what, we're still producing money in this pandemic. We'll just lose that investment that we've already made. And they have to call it at some point. but I don't see that right now. I think the game still has so much potential that I'm really, really shocked that that's what FFG and frankly Asmodee would decide to do.
I'm not saying that's what they decide to do. I'm just saying, like, why? I don't know. Like, I guess in my mind of minds, like, number one, my other question from what the statement you said is, have they learned their lesson? Like, is this going to make them like go, hey, we need backups now. Like, we have to have at least, maybe like 2 previous sets. Like, okay, so we go back DT and mass mutation, because on the off chance that we ever have like this data loss or the code goes down or what, I don't really know. Like, they weren't very specific on what the problem was. They were very vague on it.
Like,
so
did they already spend all of their keyforge dollars trying to save whatever disastrous background there is? Because I feel like they would have been better off saying, hey, like, we need to rebuild this so we can develop a successful online client. So, there's not going to be another set planned for a year. I feel like that's a better message than shit's broke. Maybe it comes back as digital when we get it going.
I do think one of the arguments I have that is frustrating right now is the timeline. They are very ambiguous. We do not have a timeline. We don't have a timeline. So that makes me worried, but with FFG's background. But this is where, on the other side, I know that they have set 6, 7, and 8. I know that, to see balance sheet and to see Aaron coming out on their own personal accounts, I think that's got to count for something, guys. And I think that they have a moneymaker here. So I don't see them just going ahead and losing it. That's just, I guess that's where I am. Maybe I think the best of people, and I'm going to stick with that. But I think that this game, when they're even talking about the online client, they're talking about going ahead and not losing the decks. I've seen so many games that frankly just do 2.0. Mech Warrior, here's 2.0. All of your stuff is negated. Here's Hero Clicks. Oh, Hero Clicks. All of your stuff is gone. Here's 2.0. They came out and said that it's still going to be viable. It's still going to be evergreen, that you're still going to be able to use it. That at least gives me some hope.
Well, I mean, so I guess the thing we got going on, and with the people I've talked with, and when we're talking, like, it still comes around to that the communication doesn't feel as clear or honest as we've ever wanted it to be.
It's not transparent.
Right. So this announcement was, something's no good. We claim we have another set, but we're on indefinite hiatus. So this could be, us just blowing some smoke up, so 6 months down the line we can say, nah, we're never going to do Keyforge again, but you guys thankfully bought out the rest of our stock, even when we...
Nah, we weren't able to fix the code. Sorry, guys.
I just, like, it can't... I mean, like, how this code is not that complex. It cannot be that complex.
So here's my plea to FFG. FFG, and I'm going to kind of move us on to the next piece. What can be done? What could FFG be doing in the meantime to keep the game moving?
They need to 100% support OP play.
That is the number one thing I say. Right now, you can go ahead and you can support the stores that are in session. You can frankly go ahead and have an online turn-in system for Amber Shards. You could go ahead and put out little trinkets, but you're going to have PR support to be able to get out there, to talk to people, to build up the game, to get the game store owners and the store employees to be pushing your game and product. And yeah, you don't have a ton of new product coming in. Guess what that's going to do? It's going to increase the cost and the interest for those decks that do remain. And frankly, going ahead and having fun, that's what this community has always done. We have supported you time and time and time again. You should be out there right now, not looking to make more money off of it, but being super transparent. And we're going to run these events. We're going to run these events for everyone who has been interested in the game and who wants to continue, because we're going to come back and hit it that much longer. It's another motivation. If you're telling me that you're putting your time and money into OP, that you really are committed to this. So that's what I'm going to say for FFG. And number 2, please, please, please have better communication with us. As I've been on the podcast, as we've gone through the pandemic, it's just been absolutely nothing. And we've seen shift of people who are there, but just talk to us. Come into Discord, come into Facebook, come into Twitter, come into Reddit. Be a presence. If you want to make a difference in the gaming community, have a presence, because your background has told us that, and that's what's scaring people. Your background has told us.
My background tells me I shouldn't trust you.
Correct.
Right.
So that's the two things that I would put out right now that I think is realistic, isn't going and breaking a huge budget, but could go ahead and not only sustain this game, but elevate it to that next piece, that as we take off with Keyforge 2.0, with the next set and the new algorithm, that we have new people. We're invigorated. We're super excited by this.
I think OP needs to be there to support the stores that do have products sitting on their shelves. Like, if you bought product and now you're just sitting on it, like they've murdered you, right? Like, it wasn't like normally when a game's going to discontinue, you get a little more notice than that, right? Like, to basically be selling.
Not with FFG games. I don't know if you remember Destiny, but they released a final set and 3 weeks later said, no, actually, we're not doing this anymore. I don't know if you remember that, but that was the thing they did.
But it's pretty harsh, because if you're buying stuff as a store and now you're sitting on it and then they discontinue it right after you placed an order at standard retail, it's just like it burns, right? And there's plenty of dark tidings, and actually, I guess I don't know how much there is, because I saw a post from a UK player that there's no dark tiding in UK's distribution, maybe. But
no, that was in regards to, I think you're talking about basically some of the Dark Tidings decks have an overlap where there's a card that is
one of them.
Well, but they're having an issue, and so they had talked to him about getting it replaced, and they said, no, we can't go ahead and do it. Return it to your store, which again...
No, that's not the post I said. It said specifically, I mean, it was the same kind of thing, but it said specifically, there's none of this in stock. Go pound salt. And
please don't do that. Don't send it back on the store. These stores are friendly local game stores. They are the heart.
Now. Like, their policy is they don't take games back. You take it back to the store. That's Asmodee, so FFG policy. It doesn't matter what the player should do. That's what their policy is. If you contact Asmodee here in the States, they tell you to take it back to the store.
I hear that, but...
I mean, like, you're right. It's not really the store's fault, but what the store's supposed to be able to do is exchange your game, send your game back for credit as a faulty product. What's supposed to be able to happen, I haven't ever tried, so I don't know if that really works for the store, especially since they probably bought it through a distributor, or maybe bought it.
It's these little things, though, that keep adding up. You can really...
The whole practice, or it's not FFG, it's Asmodee's whole practice in the last year has been not supporting the game store, right? They have been pushing their own direct sales models. They have consistently increased price to stores. They have pushed through several new policies that don't allow stores sell Asmodee products online. Like, your current Asmodee contract says I cannot list my Asmodee games on Amazon. I'm not permitted to. So they have been pushing to be a direct to consumer sales thing, and a game like Keyforge doesn't live well in that model, because Keyforge is a game that survives off of store level game night tournament stuff, which is a totally different model than board games, and Asmodee is built around board games.
Let's get back kind of on the topic of the algorithm. I want to know for you guys, and everybody in the chat, you guys can chime in to go ahead and I guess like the Keyforge section. I probably should have made its own chat section for live. What is a reasonable amount of time for the algorithm to be back up and running?
I don't care when the algorithm runs again, unless they actually have a plan to do something. Right? Like, I mean, like, the amount of play I got out of Mass Mutation and definitely the amount of play I've gotten out of Dark Tidings, like those sets aren't done. I don't need a set in 2 months personally. I need there to be a reason to play with the cards I've gotten from the last 2 sets. I need that more than I need them to push another new set, right? It's not an algorithm, and it's not new sets that's needed right now. It's a reason to play this game is what we need outside of playing a game.
So what would be, for you at least, what would be a reasoning to play the game? Is it just OP support?
I mean, OP
is that
support
it?
Would be good. I mean, like, yeah, this is a...
I mean, I'm not at all disagreeing with you that, they have not... I mean, there's tons of stuff they could be doing while we're in the middle of this hiatus, right?
Yeah.
The only release event Mass Mutation got was Keyforge Live. Right? Like, that's it. They never did a release event for Mass Mutation.
Did Destiny have anything like Amber Shards or a prize wall?
I would assume they did, but I don't know. I never played Destiny.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Destiny to comment on that.
I was just thinking, you want to see the saltiest bunch of people in the world is for them to cancel Keyforge and be like, and your Amber Shards all go to nothing because we're done with that too.
I mean, pretty much your Amber Shards are worth nothing right now. You can't do anything with them.
You can't do anything with them, but they also haven't said they are worth nothing. Like, you want to talk about being annoying, where they gave us 10x Amber Shards for opening Mass Mutation decks, and there hasn't been a chance to spend them since, unless you were at one event in China.
Right. So, I mean, they're definitely... I mean, we could have a Mass Mutation and a DT, quote-unquote, season, right? Like, or you can call it whatever you want to call it. Like, we'll just say season. Like, it could be a... you can do something with these decks that are already out there. Like, we at Archon's Corner were able to get a hold of Mass Mutation. I'm sure FFG can get a hold of some Mass Mutation and run events. I'm sure they can get a hold of Dark Tidings and run some events. So I do think you're right. The biggest thing they need to do right now is get something going, but they just don't seem to be willing to do that. Do you think they're going to be willing to do that? Like, I mean... their whole thing is like, well, we're still in the pandemic, and I get that. Like, I'd rather not take as many chances as possible.
And it's a very interesting thing there, because I'm right now choosing not to go to Gen Con. I am choosing not to go to the pop-up. I'm choosing not to go to many of these large gatherings, because I'm in the position right now where I don't think it's safe to be doing those things. So I am back to not going to large-scale things. Like, if we said we wanted to run another Keyforge Live right now, I would say no. I would not be part of it,
right,
because the current situation we have, I don't think supports that. So it is hard for them to invest there, because what can you support? But I think store level, small scale events are definitely a thing, as Ewok has been saying, a way to cash out Amber Shards in some way.
Do you think like an online store where I could log in with my FF, because obviously I have an Asmodee account and they could see how many Ember Shards I have. Do you think like an online store would quench people's woes for like stuff and things? Where I could go online and spend my Ember Shards to then
it wouldn't
get something?
Hurt anything, but it's also a very large expense. Like, it's a huge pain in the ass to run a store. It is a huge pain in the ass to run a store.
But I mean,
when it has to support international shipping, like, it is
right.
It is unreasonable. Like, the cost to run the store doesn't make it worth it for what it is. It just doesn't end up work. Now, if they could find some cool way to let you turn in shards for something cool and digital, that's a route I could see them going. But physical, actual prizing from a prize wall is too expensive to box and ship everything.
Well, I think that's kind of the I think that's and I guess I don't know a better way to say it. I think that's the shit sandwich you have to take for the mess up you made.
Yeah, I don't feel it was there.
I actually think the cost it would be to run something like that would be high enough that they would rather give up on Keyforge potentially. Like, I'm telling you, it would be
that high.
You're not aware, like, running that kind of thing, especially there where that doesn't actually generate any income. Right now, it it sort of tangentially keeps people interested in keyforge, but what it really is a bunch of people who have already mostly quit keyforge just cashing out their shit, right? It's not people who think there's a future in this game and don't really worry about it. It's going to be a bunch of people who are kind of already out cashing in their shards, and it just costs them a lot of money. You got to buy all that stuff, you got to house all that stuff, now you got to pack all that stuff, you got to ship all that stuff. It's full-time people work to do that kind of stuff.
I'm just looking in the chat here.
Zero number of dollars coming in for doing it.
Okay, I'm just looking at the chat here. X-Ray says, pandemic could be the reason for vague no timeline. If they said it and the pandemic's still raging on, you have disappointed your player base. I don't think that's true at all. And you and I talked last night, X-Ray. If the pandemic's still raging on, the pandemic's still raging on. There's nothing that FFG can do about the pandemic. So I think if they put a timeline on it, but then they're like, hey guys, people are still dying in the streets. Like, I don't think that anybody's going to be like, well, but you said, like, waving their fists in the air. You said by this date. I think that's not reasonable. I think people would be like, well, yeah, they're right, and kind of move on with it. So I think they didn't put a timeline on this. And I'm just going to be honest here. I think they didn't put a timeline on us because I think they're trying to get a cost analysis right now. How much is it going to cost them to redo this algorithm? Because let's be honest, balance sheet said the day he got there, he was briefed on the situation. I don't know when he was officially hired, but I know it was about a month ago.
I wonder how early in negotiations with Stainless Productions or whatever it is they are on that thing, and if they're not announcing a date because they don't have an ETA yet on how long they think the game development's going to be. I really think the algorithm is a couple of good programmers and a few days is all.
Well, I'm looking in the chat. X-Ray says 6 months.
Well, that's how long they say.
Somebody else said 6 months.
They said they think is a reasonable amount of time for them to take to do stuff. I mean, like the algorithm rebuild really shouldn't
I said
be
6
much.
weeks. I literally said 6 weeks. I mean, you have a guy who's doing it on a home PC, like on his time off,
yes, but
and got through 5 sets in a few days.
What is a reasonable amount of time for them to deploy a real online client?
I mean, yeah, you're probably in that vein for an online client. Yeah, you're probably looking at 6 months, if not a year.
So
because the online client portion. So here's the deal, and it depends on what they want to do. If it's just I scan my deck in and now I can play, that's very, very simple to do. If it's I'm going to try to make this into some sort of money making, some capital gaining venture, that's a totally different story. That can take years upon years upon years.
I don't think there's not enough value in them making just a way to play it online.
No, they have to.
Something
they have to be
exists. They have to have a way to monetize it.
Right. So, I mean, if you're looking for a way to monetize it, I don't know what their ideas are, but the only idea that pops into my head right away is digital decks.
Well,
so if you're looking for a way to monetize it, it's going to be a year.
As long as
it's not necessarily a problem,
decks
but
are playable too, then it's not really a big deal.
Mm-hmm. I would tell you for it would be about a year is honestly what you're looking at. If it just started, and let's just say it just started with Dark Tidings, and this is kind of when they knew the problem was, it would take about a year.
I don't think that is at all accurate anymore. These kinds of games, depending on how much uniqueness they're putting into the interface itself, with the fact that enough card games exist already out in the world and Unity exists, the development space for something like this, which is not a mechanically interesting system in some regards, it's not super in-depth. It's not a crazy amount of in-depth programming or interaction, right? Because there's no interaction from the player on off turn, and that kind of stuff makes it actually a pretty easy thing to program. I don't
Right.
think it should really take that long.
It would so it would probably take about, like I said, about a year from the ground up. If we're doing everything. I'm just laughing at Significant Figures post. If the past 6 months since the last Crucible cast or communication isn't a hiatus, how long is an actual hiatus going to be? I'm thinking this will be years. I don't know about years, but at least a year. Yeah, I think you're looking at a full 12 months. I mean, from the ground up, depending on how long it's been that they have talked to Stainless Games, and depending on how long they've known that the algorithm was debunked, you're looking at about 12 months. So at about this time, or maybe a couple months previous. So what we look at, when was DT released overall?
Who's a better internet person than me? What day did Stainless put up that page with upcoming CCG?
I have no idea.
I'm not smart enough to figure that either. Or ambitious enough?
Well, I don't even know. I can look it up right now. Upcoming CCG. I don't remember this post even, so I'm not gonna lie to you. That's not gonna help me at all. But I mean, even then, I mean, so let's say 9 months. I mean, the algorithm first has to get fixed. That's first and foremost. It's got to get fixed. I don't think it should take longer than 6 weeks. I think if you get two decent programmers, like the guy who programs this stuff, like I said, is a part-time employee, pay him whatever, pay him the full-time hours, make him a full-time employee, and he does nothing but fix the keyforge algorithm. All right? And that should take him roughly 6 weeks.
You're already, you are using the throw money at it approach, which you can't justify without having a lot more information than we have available to us. So
I struggle with saying that I'm wrong.
But
I mean, what for 6 weeks? What are you really paying someone? It's 6 weeks
on their rate of pay.
That's true.
That's a huge variance. But what they're talking about here is, what I'm saying. Like, it shouldn't take more than a few weeks to rebuild an algorithmic deck generator, which is a totally different task than rebuilding the database of decks generated. Right? If that's the data if they're trying to uncorrupt or rebuild what's already been generated so they can pull that data in some useful way for this online thing, that is a real different task.
That's a different task.
Well, but that if that's what's going on.
But they have a database of all the decks generated.
They clearly do, because the Master Vault still works. So
the Master Vault's working, so you have at least a majority.
Yeah,
you're not going to be perfect in this. That's the one thing I think they have to realize. You're not going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes.
They can deck scrape the decks in a couple of hours, right? I don't see how that can't be that important. Yeah, Wizard, you are right. They don't have enhancements on the Master Vault.
And that might be a place where you just hey, you cut some corners. I mean, unless you really plan on doing a ton of enhancements again, which I guess they might in the future, like that might be somewhere where you have to cut corners.
There is the 100% question on if that data actually exists anywhere at all.
Right.
And that's one of
my guess is the answer is no. Because if it was being corrupted at the start of mass mutation and DT's what did it, my guess is that information wasn't being stored anywhere to begin with. Just a guess.
Well,
like I said,
doesn't necessarily mean that it's 100% compatible. You may be able to upload your deck and it'll just randomly assign enhancements, and so be it. That's what they decide. Like, that could happen. It would be real crappy, but this is something they could do and still be backwards compatible.
Sure. Or they can just, and it would be real crummy, But TCO does it where you assign your enhancements.
Yeah.
No.
That definitely makes a difficulty for any tournament level play.
Sure, it makes it difficult, but I don't know if they're looking to do tournament level. Again, we don't know what they want to do with this thing. I don't think they'd be looking to do tournament level play on this. Are they looking to do like Vault Tour level? You think so?
Oh yeah. Otherwise, why would people buy decks on it?
That's true. That's very true.
It is interesting. Like, we definitely don't have enough details on what is and isn't broken in the background to really know what it is. So all we can do is postulate and go on. I know at my job, and we pay an IT group, like, it can take weeks to recover data when stuff gets lost or broken. So,
well, it doesn't even sound like they're recovering anything. It sounds like they're just starting. They're just starting from scratch.
So if you watch our chat a little bit, that's what they're kind of talking about, is if they're going to promise backwards compatibility with old decks, they do need to have some amount of being able to pull that old data. But
whatever. Okay, and I understand that, but the data exists. Like, you can at least find I'm going to guess a majority decks in Master Vault and the OK. Like, I know FFG and Nathan kind of they butt heads, right? But this is the time where you kind of got to suck up to that programmer who's done a lot of work for you, and be like, "Hey, we need your data."
Keyforge is just scraping Master Vault as well. So,
right,
and like the information is in Master Vault, and it's clearly still functional because I can still scan my crappy AOA decks I bought, and that information of what's in that deck exists
is still there
in a database. So, like, that database works to some extent. Whatever the difference between that database and the algorithm is, we don't know.
Well, when they say algorithm, my assumption on algorithm is it's the deck generating algorithm.
Yes, algorithm by definition is not a database, but yes, like a application more kind of thing.
I mean,
like how it does
if we are still scanning decks into Master Vault, that means that database still exists and has not been touched. Yeah, I don't know. And again, this is where that transparency comes in, where they need to explain to us what is going on.
This is, again, where I think it doesn't matter because we know they clearly have a list of all the decks they've ever printed. So just start a new algorithm, unless they actually think they're going to go back and reprint old sets. What does it matter if you can't generate decks from them anymore?
Right. I kind of agree with that too.
That's exactly where I was at earlier. Like, okay, you said that this is a set run. We're done with Coda. We're done with AOA. What's out is out. Like, why do we need to go back and pull that? There has to be a reason that I'm not seeing, but it's a really interesting piece of they're trying to go back to retrieve data. I don't know.
It is interesting, but we are coming up very, very quickly on our hour here. So we do have some notes that we'll kind of continue to go over from next week. I'm sure the algorithm will still pop up next week, but obviously we'll be talking about Winds of Exchange next week. The in-flight report, which was very not lengthy for Keyforge at all.
Hold on. I can go through that real quick because we're going to go Winds of Exchange, main piece there, 7 houses. Brobnar.
There's always 7.
Sanctum. Mars coming back.
Yeah.
Star Alliance.
Boo.
Saurian. Unfathomable. And then, as my wife said, Compacts of Equidon. And her immediate response, so lovely shout out, Miss Tara. That's a terrible name. It's really long. So we got to find a shortened way to be able to go with Compacts of Equidon. I like the idea of Trading House. But man, it's going to impact the game. First, some big boys there: Brobnar, Sanctum, Saurian, and I think that we'll have to definitely. Well, you guys will have to definitely talk about kind of the impact of losing Untamed, losing Logos, and losing Shadow. So I'm very curious to see what you guys will talk about.
It's totally dependent on identities they give to Mars and the new house.
Compacts. Yep.
And we're coming up on our hour, so I don't want to go any more over that, but we'll go through that all starting next week. We'll start deep diving into that stuff and theory crafting, all that together. Do want to give, JR, if you could give our big shout out to our friend, Mr. Lokar, for me, please.
Sure, Lokar, there's a beautiful picture of him in some fuzzy Gruins. So he scored some fuzzy Gruins. Definitely check out Wednesday. I mean, when we're talking about all of this, the end result is there's a ton of play. Can I say it again? A ton of play still available for MM, for DT, for frankly, all the people coming from Ollie's with AOA. There is a ton of Keyforge that is out there to be played, to be enjoyed. And if it's 6 months, if it's 4 months, if it's a year, we can go ahead as a community and continue to support this. And I've heard that from podcast after podcast, after group, after Discord and Discord. We have people who will be here who are going to have fun. And I think that you guys can definitely continue to explore and engage. So check out our Discord. I know Sunday night is still Sheep. You're going ahead and running your Chainbound. Tuesday should be sealed with Sheep. And then Lokakar's got his Wednesday sealed. And he does have some fuzzy Gruins that he was able to get. So that sort of thing totally brings people out. They're amazing. Keep that up. I love to see that, FFG.
All right. I want to thank everybody who came out to listen to us tonight. First live episode. We are going to be doing this kind of like this is the new thing, right? We're going to be doing this pretty regularly. And we'll be probably taking some of your calls. There is an option in the stages that I can, me and Sheep can start taking calls. Make sure you guys are following us over on Twitter at Archons Corner, on Facebook at Archons Corner, the YouTubes is Archons Corner, Spreaker. I mean, we're all over the podcast universe. Where else? Sheep, you have a Twitter. He doesn't know what it is. I think it's at Dr. Sheep 44422.
Sure.
Yep, that's what it is. That's what it's going to be now. But obviously, make sure you guys come out for, we have 3 times a week where we do run events. So if you're looking to play on some events, it's not a bad way to do it. Discord channel is in the, the doobly-doo down below. I know we wanted to get into much more things going into tonight, but obviously a lot to unpack with the algorithm going down. So thank you all for coming out, making this first, quote-unquote live show a great success, and we'll see y'all next week.
Yeah, and I tell you that's peace. I don't